Right.
Does that
So-
work with everybody?
Why is it bumping up to
Yeah,
35?
Because he needs 15
I
feet
need
of clearance
15
off
foot
of 20
clearance
feet.
here.
Why, just not that here though.
And just do one here, one here, one here. And, yeah. And that way it's not too much work, but you get the idea that there's something there.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like scale-wise, it'll look right. Like that would be the big structural part, and then the rest would be just mullions.
Yeah, well, I don't think even the structure's gonna have to be this big.
Yeah, but it could be if we wanted it.
Maybe 3 more cuts.
Okay. Are we gonna need it for one more?
I want you on the shot. Ooh, careful.
Thelma under the knee to be in it.
Sure.
Engineers like used to like landslide in.
Okay, hold on just a second.
Those things. Yeah, you can't put it in a slide.
My camera is going
Personally, I
sideways
take
for some
these
reason.
Yeah, it's got more size to it.
See this? Or the flexible ruler.
Can you tilt it this way a tiny bit? Sorry, the other way. Towards you.
Actually, I'd probably go
A little bit more. A little more.
It's got a little slant.
His is fully on that.
No, his is semi. He had to trade out some pieces. Should be 20.
Oh, this is not. This is 20. From the floor to the bottom of the ceiling.
What are they saying about mine to like still connect it right here? Is that what they're saying?
Thank you very much for making this time. I know how busy things are in Philadelphia and in other offices. Mr. Richard Farley and Mrs. Farley and Patrick in Philadelphia and Mr. Castner in KlingStubbins, Cambridge, and Mr. Michael Mendelin in Jacobs, St. Louis, Robert Cobb from Boston. Am I right? And I would like to welcome you all and we appreciate your continuous support and mentoring on this project. Today is a kind of tight in terms of the time. We are going to play a 5-minute PowerPoint presentation just to remind everybody that where we were last semester, and we are building our railroad track and highway, and students they have been doing lots of coordination between the structures and other functions, other existing functions beneath this site. Maybe I should start with a video or the PowerPoint presentation to remind us where we were last semester. Last semester the focus was really creating a massing concept. Mike, could you please play that one?
Yep.
There are some clear images of the master plan students. Today, last semester, they are going to present their individual projects and focusing on the coordination of the whole site in terms of the master plan and with existing. These two of our students, Aurelie and Gwynne, they created this animation. It's a very rough animation. They are going to enhance that during this semester. But here you get a chance to see what was the concept, what they thought of that site and what was the best solution to create an image for
reason
the
for
site.
this design, which is a connection between University of Pennsylvania campus and downtown.
I'm going to ask
Philadelphia.
the studio member come here and they present. Each of them they are going to have 4 minutes maximum to present their projects, and then we are waiting for your comments. And please let us know if this is going to work in your schedule, in your time schedule.
There will be a connection from my building to the tower right here that will have a gondola that will go throughout our site to get you to each piece. I've got, can't really see that, some sections and my beer plans here, and there's a subway that meets here or bus, so you can go to either to get to downtown or to New York.
30th Street Station is such a huge transportation center for Philadelphia that what would be interesting for your project is to, since you have all these rail lines going through there, is to figure out a way that you can deal with those rail lines and make that usable space for the city. Because right now it's just cutting and dissecting the city and creating a divide.
The transportation center where you get bus tickets and whatnot and wait for the bus. Cab drop-offs are there. If you go below ground. The rail station is up here. So all these railroad tracks meet at this train station up here. So I left that be the main place to be getting on these trains. And plus, most of these are only commercial.
Part of any of the conversation last semester, so forgive me if I'm saying something you guys have already considered. But I don't know if you guys realize that I just did my master's thesis on this site, so I'm super familiar with everything you're dealing with. But there's also a SEPTA regional rail stop called University City that's right near there, and you might want to look into recircuiting some of the rail lines so that you could have a regional rail stop there rather than where it stops, which is sort of right past the Palestra.
Right.
I think it's like after the South Street Bridge. And you may find that it will serve.
Automatically, your baggage is all taken care of, et cetera.
Right. You can
Prior to
also
getting to the airport.
definitely use a expedited airport connection, because the regional rail takes, I think, 40 minutes from Center City to the airport.
Yeah, it's about 35, but it's, yeah.
Yes.
Never used it in my entire life.
That this building will be for the study of biology or botany. And my idea was that these areas here that kind of stand out, so that way they have a place to study, so that way they have a place to maybe get a coffee or something like that if they're pulling an all-nighter.
So why did you put 4 stairs?
4 stairs, well, because I kind of like the idea of having grand stairs.
Building, so, because that, my gut reaction to what you've got, given the back of the floor plate, doesn't seem to be tremendously large.
Wondering if there's also an opportunity to use the greenhouse element as perhaps atria that could have
You want to have
energy
it completely
application.
closed off to the light, you know, in a biology lab, that might make sense.
Yeah, I kind of felt like this, that's why I put the biology lab's interior and the classrooms kind of more exterior.
And reduce energy costs.
Yeah. I also thought that the ventilation could be through the solar
Yeah,
power
you
or
might
something.
find a way of organizing this plan so that all of these elements work together in a way that a greenhouse and daylight potential and common areas, breakout spaces, all kind of relate to each other, and laboratory spaces are clustered around that somehow.
Spaces that Louis Kahn developed, because he always makes really interesting relationship between sort of served spaces versus laboratory spaces.
A lot of atrium space in there. So it may be a nice reality check for you. It's done by English Hopkins, Hopkinson? Michael Hopkinson? Hopkins?
Apartments, and then the bottom levels are going to be room for offices for the building, and then we also have implemented a cafe, a coffee shop, and a restaurant. But it's an open structure that will connect over to the research building, and what's underneath of there is that as well. And then also the offices that are on that level can use those spaces too, and it's still keeping it separated from, it's going to be cut all the way through, so light is coming through, but still connecting back to the central core. We're looking at using
Drug stores
kind of like a
and
catwalk.
retail and restaurants. It'd be nice if you could do that without having to cross Walnut Street.
Well, we talked about, it's not in this model, but with the mesh system that's on this skyscraper that's right next to us on the other side of the road that comes through our
It's
site.
not differently than
We talked
graduate
about
students.
Right.
And also, you know, a senior isn't gonna wanna live the same way that a freshman does.
Right.
So that might help you specify as you go in and develop the floor plans. I suspect, if I had to guess, that you're probably gonna be getting more graduate students that wanna live around there. So you might be
rotating is the office space. The plan here is a typical floor plan for my office space with the elevators, 2 emergency stairs, exit stairs, bathrooms, technical space, and circuit.
But it seems to me that maybe you want to be more organic in the plan, not so, no? I mean, it's very rational and very logical.
I think you're responding to the crochet of the core. I think that you're reading that as stronger than maybe it would be in the actual plan.
Okay.
It probably wouldn't be quite as thick, although very, very nice structurally, it works extremely well.
Especially with where you're pulling your skin off and trying to connect to other buildings. I would really focus on developing that aspect, because that can make or break your project in how you make that connection. And what's happening, I guess, the most of the floor plans of the office space, so you can show just that typical floor plan, but also seeing the floor plans for the lower levels and how they are different than what's happening above. Obviously, when you have, say, a conference room or something, you're gonna have a much different floor plan, much different kind of arrangement of how you circulate through the space, et cetera, et cetera. So,
I would say for all of the projects that we've seen, it would be.
Like a standalone project, side by side. And there are elements like parking that if it was treated as more of a common element,
Yes,
could contribute to the urban design character of the project, could perhaps take advantage of shared parking scenarios, so you could start to reduce the amount of overall parking. So maybe that's happening in the plan, it just hasn't been apparent so far that.
And if you want to look at sort of a larger tower that integrates mesh and open spaces, especially public spaces, you might want to look at the Morphosis Federal Building in San Francisco. I don't know if you've looked at it yet. It's a different skin than yours, but they sort of have this same continuous flow of facade into like a public courtyard, and it might help you better.
Right along the deck of the pool, we're thinking of a spa, maybe turning one of those levels into a suite level, even though most of our suites are up in the higher part of the tower. And up on this plan would be towards the river. We've centered the main core that has a mechanical shaft and some elevators, and then also
Need those accommodations.
right. I've gotten several books on accessibility in hospitality design, and I was thinking that most which room type it was, we would have accessible rooms worked in there.
But the interesting thing is that if you design for accessibility in every room, it's usually gracious enough that everybody feels good itself. It really causes you to think about some issues that most of us don't ever have to deal with, but
spend a bit more money to have the luxury of being able to go out on a terrace.
Philadelphia does have a different climate than Oakland, but you can be outside for well more than half the year comfortably, I would say, on the balcony. Maybe not swimming, but you would use that balcony for maybe 8 months.
Opening yourself up as much, like you're keeping some of your private space inside the room.
Gotcha. But, and when if you have a chance, maybe just walk over to the Marriott and walk around. I mean, it's very clever the way they set up a floor that they avoid those kind of issues. And by moving the wall in and out, but working with the rectangular and orthogonal geometry, are able to create special zones and pockets for
yeah. Hospitality design is one of the areas of design that has a lot of rules in how you plan space. So you should be aware of certain things, like, for example, almost all hotels are double loaded slabs because that's the most efficient way to put in your rooms and get the most efficiency out of your floor plan.
The residents.
Right, there are no public, there are no restaurants or any public retail above the 3rd floor. I think that would be, like the restaurants on the
we're just saying,
when you're taking the elevator from the 1st floor to the 3rd floor, is that also the elevator that goes to the 4th and above?
No, it's,
Because of that?
It's not into those
No,
open
it's not.
spaces because the size of your floor plate, even with the cuts for light access, you're not going to be able to support a full green floor plate in there, so you're going to need to figure out at least 3 smaller programs to introduce sort of greening space so that you have the space to really make that floor plate thicker, because I think you'll be surprised that 2 stories often doesn't feel like very much, especially over a horizontal plane, like it's open all the way through.
The bottom 3 floors are, the bottom 3 floors are, it's actually a pretty open floor plan. They're going to be retail.
Can you tell us how the garden levels work? Is there an atrium or is it just?
Actually, earth that plants get put into, or is it grass, etc.
I'd like to make it as green as.
I mean, and there are these staircases that
create this public space, and then the road runs underneath this public space here that leads to this area right here where there is the cultural center, and the bridge comes in here, and there's kind of a park here. And then over here there's these cutouts in my building where Gwynne and I created a retail space here and here. They're the same elevation as the road. After that, there's these stairs that go up to a secondary platform level, so, and above that.
When you have a
so
package
above the-
delivered, it wants to come up the service elevator into some space that can't be seen by the public, and then go through a corridor that goes into the back of the store. Right, that way, all of that transaction that's happening, all that.
Look around, you'll notice that they do, you can sort of see, like when you go to the bathroom, for example, you can see that back there, they have a whole secret network of like, they're not that wide, it's like maybe a 6-foot wide corridor behind all of the stores. I think Lyne in between the stores.
Right, but the real message is if you start to do that, it's gonna help give an order, a structure to the building that will help you design it.
You can enter over here on this other platform. Does that answer your question? I'm not 100% sure what you're asking.
So at the main level of retail,
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
She had that.
my name is Steve Charles, we're the next team, and this is my partner, Mark, here, and they'll comprise this area of the building, and we have plans to support this as well. Above that is 2 floors of leasable space, like a leasable studio. We haven't quite envisioned what that's going to be, but we know that we're on an open floor plan. Above that is the driving floor above that, mechanical service floor, and then the rest of that is comprised of residential units. And I'm going to go into the residential units, work my way back down. As it's set up right now, everything typical about this building, we have 2 floors that are guest bedroom, master bed, master bath, kitchen, large living space. You can see this curved wall here, this long wall here. This layout allows us a 360-degree view. In the middle of the residential, we have a kind of a common companionway for circulation where everything exits onto. And moving on, here we have one of the
access part or whatever, open up directly into the unit, thereby eliminating any of that core space or that open space that you have, the common space, and grabbing a lot more for the unit itself, particularly given the size of these.
The common space seemed odd too, just because when you have 2 private units on a floor, why would you have communal? I mean, usually you see communal spaces when you have a lot of units.
I think that the air circulation is the right idea, but you could probably accomplish that within each unit so that they could control it. But I would say if this is such prime real estate that I would probably knock down the size of those stairs significantly, because that's, you're like giving, if you're gonna sell those units for a couple $1 million, they don't need residential, they don't care about it, that has nice floor plans.
But I like the fact that New York Times, you could cut those things out, you could
Original wire.
really get a sense of how multiple bedrooms lay out, how private baths lay out within, en suite, and it'll cut to the chase.
The main issue kind of that I had, or things that I tried to address in the design, were dealing with the multiple levels of access, because you can access it here. I can go to a section. The pedestrian access as well from the boat club and kind of that outdoor public space. So kind of dealing with the plan, I can just run through these really quickly and then run out of time. The highway, it's kind of touching base there. And then I have fan-fold arches that kind of create an open space for the concert halls and exhibit space. And then on the exterior, there's a...
Maybe that's just the wrong place to take a section, but all of the spaces were a really uniform size, and when you think of a cultural center, you think of someplace that might have really large program. So you probably want to cut a section that begins to show some of the like drastic difference in scale between a lobby and a practice room and a theater.
Right.
Anyway, so looking at what I have now, I have 7 stories up top of, prime office space. Probably going to put some like convention room or something up there, so the public can come up and they can actually experience the height of this building. And now through my massing, I've got some space on the front that
coffee area for the residents. And this is just a quick floor plan I have. Each floor is going to be about 2 floors each. That way you can have your actual bedroom in the second part of it and have your kitchen and everything right below you. And this is going to be where it attaches again.
Seems to be some phases that haven't quite been resolved. What's going to happen there? And also on the, is that going to be a roof terrace, the part that connects at the
right here
20th floor or whatever? Yeah.
Yes, it will be, but I'm also kind of debating what to do here as opposed to right here in the center, because obviously it's going to be an apartment building. I want to do a pool somewhere, and I'm kind of debating between myself to do it here or to do it